Well, how about that, guys? We are already a third of the way done with the NFL season, and things are starting to heat up. Now, I've already been eliminated from my pick'em pool. I had the Eagles yesterday over the Jets, and well, Jalen Hurts let me down. So now I just want to see the Philadelphia Eagles stumble and lose a bunch of games because I'm mad about that. But either way, the Detroit Lions have looked amazing, and I've decided to pull up my spreadsheet, look at my predictions, and look to the next 6 games or the next, 10, 11 games. So let's look at that. We're going to talk about this, but I am very impressed with what I've seen with the Lions so far. They have been lights out, and the defense is playing far better than I expected. And that's with key injuries to guys who I thought were going to be the biggest impacts on this team, like CJ Gardner-Johnson. I expected him to lead this defense. With him being out, other guys have stepped up, and it's been really awesome. Alex Anzalone, I don't know if anybody who is a Lions fan thought he was going to be playing this good. He looks like almost every week the same way he did when we were at Lambeau Field to end the season last year. Something's clicked for him, and he's been playing awesome all over the field, playing with speed, just being very disruptive, getting after quarterbacks, stopping the run, breaking up passes. So he's been amazing. The defensive line play has been pretty solid. We've been getting some pressure, collapsing the pockets, being very disciplined, staying in our lanes. We have not been torn apart by running quarterbacks the way we were last year. So that's been good. We've been stopping the run game. This is the best run defense I've ever seen the Detroit Lions have. I don't think they've done this for about 70 or 80 years now. So that's quite impressive. Jared Goff is playing like an elite top 3 quarterback in the league, and he's been doing that for 17 games now. If you go back into last season, Jared Goff has looked elite. So, heck, we were down to our 4th string running back yesterday, and Craig Reynolds, he's better than a 4th string quarterback. That block he laid out that actually took 2 guys out of the play, the original guy that he hit into the other. Now, the other guy still almost tackled Amon-Ra, but if Craig Reynolds didn't block the guy into him, that would not have been a touchdown. So who knows? Maybe we would have had to settle for 3. But no, we got the touchdown, and it was an amazing play. I went nuts in my living room. It was so great. So, again, I've been very impressed with this team across the board. Our wide receivers have stepped up when J-Mo wasn't here. Ultimately, Sam Laporta has been amazing. But ultimately, they're playing as a team, both on offense and defense. When guys are not there, others are stepping up and filling their shoes. So again, fantastic job so far by the Lions. And record-wise, they're exactly where I thought they would be right now. They're exactly where I thought they would be. So let's go over to my spreadsheet and take a look at it. All right, so you can see over here on the right, I've got the results and I've got the predictions. Now, for the results, the only ones I got wrong were the Chiefs and Seahawks. It's just flip them, right? Either way, they are still 5-1. We are now heading into Baltimore to take on Lamar Jackson. But before I get into that, we beat the Chiefs. The score was kind of close, but that game in the end really wasn't close. The Seahawks, we should have won that game. If with a minute to go, the Lions with 3 timeouts in the Seahawks side of the field, if we would have went for the win instead of playing for the field goal, I think we win that game. Leaving it up to who wins the coin toss in overtime has never worked well. It's shades of Marty Mornhinweg on Thanksgiving. It's just not a good feeling. So I think we should have beat the Seahawks, and we might get another chance down the road, maybe in the playoffs this year. The Falcons game, again, we pretty much handled that game the way that, you have to. I mean, Bijan Robinson was being hyped as this great running back, and he's been playing really well this year, but not against us. Our run defense was stout that game. Then we went to Lambeau Field. That wasn't even close. Stomped them. Played the Panthers. Again, a relatively simple game where we dominated that. And now Tampa Bay, where if Mike Evans caught those 2 passes, the one that probably could have led to a touchdown, I mean, heck, that could have been or not Mike Evans. Pittman, I think. Baker Mayfield overthrew Pittman. And twice. And one of those was for sure a touchdown. The other one might have been close. So there's that's 14 points right there. It would have been a closer game. Ultimately, though, it didn't happen. The pressure that the Lions were putting on the Buccaneers, I think, leads to that. The fact that Baker Mayfield couldn't get comfortable in the pocket all led to that. And Mayfield didn't have the worst game. His interception was a tipped pass, so there's not a lot he can do there. But there were a couple tipped passes yesterday. The Lions were swarming the field. It was a great, great effort by the defense. And we've been doing it all year so far. So that's why I don't think this is a fluke. I think just the Lions defense has arrived. Our defensive line is playing really well. We've got a lot of depth on the defensive line. Our linebackers are starting to play really well. We've got some depth there. Cam Sutton, oh my gosh. Sutton has been playing amazing at corner. Yesterday, it felt like the first time anyone was really trying to throw to his side. And you see why they don't usually, because he's a good corner. So, yeah, the safeties have been playing well. So I'm just thrilled. Now, we're going into Baltimore. I had predicted this to be a loss. I could still see us losing this game. I just think Lamar Jackson is a level of quarterback we haven't seen this year since Patrick Mahomes. I just Buccaneers, Panthers, Packers, Falcons, Seahawks. I'm not sold on their quarterbacks. Geno Smith for the Seahawks is good. Don't get me wrong. But to me, he's not the greatest quarterback in the league. In fact, I think he's more of a product of Pete Carroll being a great coach over there in Seattle. So this will be our first real quarterback test, in my opinion, but besides Patrick Mahomes. The Ravens, I still think, are a well-coached team. I still think they have a solid defense. They've got a lot of good players over there. Roquan Smith, I think we're going to hear his name a lot this week. So that's going to pose some trouble. We'll see Ojabo finally, us Michigan fans will, on the opposite team of Aidan Hutchinson. So that'll be kind of cool. I'm actually looking forward to this game. So, I don't know. I could see us losing, but I actually am starting to expect us to win. And I think after this next week, we'll probably be 6-1. Raiders, I'm not worried about the Raiders too much. Obviously, Devontae Adams is a huge threat there, and the Raiders can do some stuff. They got Max Crosby, so they've got some guys on both sides of the ball. But ultimately, I'm just not sold on the Raiders being a good team. So I think the Lions are going to win that game pretty handedly. But then we go into Los Angeles, right? That's where the Chargers play now. So then we get to play the Chargers. Chargers got Kellen Moore as their offensive coordinator, who is very familiar with Detroit. He was once our offensive coordinator a few years back. Or not our offensive coordinator. He was once our backup quarterback a few years back. And he can dial up some good stuff. So who knows? Chargers might pose a threat. Justin Herbert is a great quarterback, I think. I think he's easily a top 10 quarterback in the league. And anytime you're playing quarterbacks that are of that caliber, you have a shot to win the game. So the Chargers could be a real threat. I still think that could be a loss. I still think the Bears are a cakewalk. I think we're going to beat the Packers. So, obviously we'll have that sweep. At the Saints, so down in New Orleans, they've got some good players down there. Olave, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, who I think is still good. Jamal Williams is going to want to get some revenge for how the offseason thing and his contract negotiations went, because I think he did want to stay in Detroit, but him and his agent, for whatever reason, they really wanted to entertain other teams. So he's going to want some revenge, I think, there. And they're going to want to win for him. But David Carr, all those guys down there, I think that'll be an interesting game. I still think we win. Then we go into Chicago. We beat the Bears. The Broncos, I originally had this as an L, which looking back on this was crazy. I just thought Sean Payton was going to bring a lot out of Russell Wilson. Apparently I was wrong. Russell Wilson was a product of Pete Carroll. And I'm starting to wonder if Sean Payton wasn't a little bit of a product of having an elite quarterback in Drew Brees. Just a little bit. Now, obviously, that's not the reason you allow 70 points in a game. So I don't know what's going on with the Broncos defense. I always thought they had some good players over there. I know obviously a few years back they lost Von Miller, but Broncos have not looked good this year. So I think that's a win. And the Vikings, I think we beat the Vikings. The Vikings have not put out anything this year that I've been like, wow, they're really good. I feel like Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson keep them in games sometimes, but beyond them, that their team is not good either. So if I was the Vikings, I would trade Kirk Cousins to the New York Jets if I could. If they would offer me like some picks or something, I would be a seller and I would try to get Caleb Williams. I would tank for Caleb. Let the Bears beat you and then just go get Caleb. Obviously, don't let them beat you, but you know what I'm saying. Or figure out how to get draft capital to move up to get Caleb Williams, because I think that's what you need to do if you are the Vikings. Now, maybe that's what the Broncos are doing. Maybe they're trying to go for Caleb Williams. I think if the Broncos are there or the Cardinals are there at the number 1 spot, though, Caleb Williams stays at USC for another year. Then we go into Dallas. Now, I originally had the Cowboys as a loss, and I'll admit, the first few weeks of the season, I thought the Cowboys were probably going to be that team that was going to be unstoppable. But Dak Prescott is doing Dak Prescott things. Mike McCarthy doing Mike McCarthy things. They've obviously lost one of their best corners over there. I think is he out for the year? I'm not sure, but that was a huge loss. Now, I do think the Lions can beat the Cowboys. In fact, I don't know if I said it in another video if I was just talking to some people, but I had said I could see the Lions playing the Cowboys in the second round of the playoffs. And honestly, I would still love to see that because I think we could beat the Cowboys. I think we can beat the Eagles. The 49ers are a little bit scary to me. But I do believe we can beat the Eagles and the Cowboys, and I think there's a little bit something extra there with the Eagles. Not only do they have DeAndre Swift, who's playing really well this year, but they also have some other former players. They have a former coach, Matt Patricia, so I think there's a lot there. Last season, the Eagles beat us in a very close game that was high scoring in the 40s, so I think combined score was like 80-something points. So, again, I think if we meet them in the playoffs, that would be kind of fun. I think that'd be a nice little story there, and it would be awesome to get past the Eagles. Imagine if we got past the Eagles and the Cowboys in the playoffs. Oh, that'd be awesome. And I hope the Eagles beat the 49ers. And then we close the season with the Vikings. So there's a couple here that I've kind of shifted on that I'm starting to think that the Lions are going to win. And so I am going to just make those yellow because that's what I'm expecting there. I'm going to leave the other couple losses because, every team loses. That's just the way it is. But even if that's the case, if they have only 3 losses at the end of the year, they're a 14-win team. That would be absurd. So I had originally predicted 12 wins. I can't imagine them being a 14-win team. That would be wild. I think that would give them a first-round bye. I still don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to lose either to the Ravens or the Chargers. Maybe they start believing their own press clippings or something. If maybe they get past the Ravens and the Raiders and they're like, oh my gosh, we're sitting at 7-1, and then the Chargers spank them or something. Or I don't know. I don't think anyone's going to spank the Lions, but maybe the defense just doesn't show up one week and maybe it's at the Chargers. And maybe that's more a product of Kellen Moore dialing up some really awesome plays. Or maybe the Ravens get by him because of Lamar Jackson's feet. Those are the things that I could see. If this team wins 14 games, I think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I'm just going to say that right now. And that's a crazy thought. I don't know. I still thought they were a year away. I mean, looking at their roster still, like, Lee McNeil, Onwuzurike, Bugs, Benito Jones, those four, I mean, they've been holding it down. And I was like, man, we really need a strong defensive tackle. Now, Onwuzurike, I don't think I've seen him a lot this year, but yesterday I definitely saw him playing. As for the edge position, obviously Hutchinson has been doing all the heavy lifting here. James Houston's been hurt. I think he's out for a while. Pascal I've seen in there a few times, but I haven't really heard his name called much for doing anything. Charles Harris has been doing okay. He's getting some pressure there. Kaminsky's getting some pressure. Aquara, a couple times this year, he's done some things. But, I think the surprises are Derek Barnes, which I was surprised when he was announced as the starter. I was like, oh, okay. Because Malcolm Rodriguez has been on special teams a lot. I hear his name a lot there. I've seen him occasionally in there, but he's not in there on every play. Jack Campbell, these two are not in there on most plays. In fact, the Lions pretty much run a 2-linebacker set. They go 4-2-5. They bring in a nickel corner, which has been lately Will Harris, but it was Brian Branch before. Brian Branch got hurt. C.J. Gardner-Johnson's hurt, which has moved Tracy Walker into the starting safety spot. Melifonwu sometimes comes in at the nickel or safety spot. So they've been doing awesome. Dorsey's been fine. Emmanuel Mosley played like 2 plays and was hurt. Jerry Jacobs, even though he was getting diced early on this year, he did have a couple interceptions last week. You can't be mad when your guy's getting turnovers. And he actually has turned around the last couple weeks and played a lot better, a little bit stickier on coverage. So was hoping we'd see more of Stephen Gilmore. We haven't, but maybe we will in the future. As for the offense, Marvin Jones Jr., he's been solid when he's out there. Josh Reynolds and Khalif Raymond have been playing well, but Josh Reynolds has really stepped up. He reminds me of like Mike Furry back in the day, or who was it that there was a guy that Stafford used to like, the white receiver that played at Georgia with him, I think. I can't remember his name, but there was a stretch of games where that guy was lights out, and it was because of that familiarity. They were on the same page. So, Jonah Jackson was out. You could tell that actually hurt the offensive line yesterday. Vaitai is out. So we've had Glasgow, and I don't think Sorsdahl was actually playing in for Jackson. I think it was Glasgow and Nelson. I don't know. I don't remember who the other guard was playing yesterday. But Glasgow was a good pickup. I'm really glad they did that. I think we probably need to get healthy on the offensive line. I don't know how possible that is. Tight end, Sam Laporta. Oh my gosh. Leading the league in like pretty much any tight end stat you can think of. He's been awesome. Amon-Ra up there, awesome. Running backs, Montgomery, when he's healthy, been playing really well. Jahmyr Gibbs has been out 2 weeks. Craig Reynolds with that block. I think Kabinda's out too. So, again, really happy with what this team is doing. Jared Goff playing like a top 5 quarterback in the league. He's my guy. I love Jared Goff. I got a Hutchinson jersey, but I've been starting to think, man, it'd be nice to get one of those gray Jared Goff jerseys. So who knows? Maybe eventually I'll get one of those. But I'm pretty happy with their performances so far. There you have it. Normally at this time of year, if we've started kind of rough, I'm like, oh man, we have all these holes that we got to plug. And man, are there any guys coming in the draft? And I start actually looking to the draft at this point sometimes. And I'm not doing that this year. This year I'm looking at, okay, who else looks good in the league? Who might we face in the playoffs? Who do we match up well against? The funny thing is leading up to the Buccaneers game this weekend, I saw a lot of articles written saying the Buccaneers' strengths are our weaknesses, and we were probably going to lose this game. And those articles were not correct. So we've got Penei Sewell, who is up there as one of the best pass blocking tackles in the league right now. We've got a lot of guys who are rating really well on Pro Football Focus's ratings, and I don't see that changing, especially since, when looking at the upcoming schedule, I don't see a ton of great quarterbacks that we play against. So again, I think we're going to be playing out in front again, which is why we've struggled in the third quarter all year. Yesterday we didn't. We scored a touchdown there, so we did outscore the Buccaneers there. But, we've got Lamar Jackson this next week. Great quarterback, in my opinion. Justin Herbert in 3 weeks. Another good quarterback there. I like Derek Carr. I think he's a solid quarterback. We play the Saints in week 12. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. I wouldn't call him great. 1 week he can look great, and the next week he can look awful, depending on how many, interceptions he decides to throw. We still got to play him twice. So that's 4 games against good quarterbacks or better. And then if you think Dak Prescott is an elite quarterback, we play them as well. Dak Prescott, I give him a 25% chance coming out and playing like a great quarterback. And then, the other 75%, he is going to cost his team the game, maybe with a couple interceptions, running into pressure when he gets out of the pocket, because he does not always stand in there. He sometimes tries to use his feet and makes mistakes. So, in fact, yesterday there was a point where he kind of rolled out to his left. He should have thrown the ball out of bounds if he didn't have anybody open, but instead he took the sack, and he was well out of the pocket, so he could have thrown it just over into the sidelines. So, that's what we have coming up. Again, besides Herbert and Jackson, I'm not afraid of any of the quarterbacks we face for the most part. So, yeah, as long as we keep Micah Parsons off of Jared Goff, again, I'm not worried. So it's a weird feeling as a Lions fan having this much optimism about this team. I remember sipping the Kool-Aid in years past, back when we had Sue and Fairley and those guys and Calvin and Golden Tate and Reggie Bush. Like, I just remember all these guys and thinking, oh man, this is the year. I never once thought this was necessarily the year. In fact, since we brought in Brad Holmes, John Dorsey in the front office, since we brought in Dan Campbell, all these guys, I've seen what they're doing, and I've told people, like, no, it feels different. I've said that even that first draft, I got excited. You guys saw it on this channel. I got the video clips. When the Lions drafted Penei Sewell, that was who I wanted. When they drafted him, I knew this was different. That whole draft, I was ecstatic with who they picked up. And then year 2, they went and got Aidan Hutchinson. They followed it up with another defensive end in Josh Paschal. I loved that. Paschal so far hasn't really lived up to it, but maybe it's like Derek Barnes. Maybe next year Josh Paschal plays lights out and starts to show who he can be. Maybe he's an 8 sack a year kind of guy. That would be amazing, Aleem McNeil, Levi and Wuzurike are really good defensive tackles. Levi obviously had the back issues coming out of college, but that first year he looked solid when he played. And, obviously Aleem McNeil lost weight and is looking great. I think McNeil is grossly underrated. I think he is a good defensive tackle. I don't think he's necessarily going to be a Pro Bowler or anything like that, for the next couple years. But, maybe next year. I don't see it this year. But McNeil is really good in the middle there. Solid player. He obviously is willing to put in the work. And I think that's what's different about this team. You can tell they got rid of guys unwilling to work. If somebody wasn't working out, they weren't afraid to cut them. They had brought in those couple of receivers in Brad Holmes year 1 through free agency. Really quickly realized they weren't going to work out and cut both of them. Paid them a lot of money and then just released them. So they weren't messing around. The culture changed quickly. And while that first half of the year they looked really bad offensively, it felt like they needed receivers. It felt like they were just a little bit away. And then Amon-Ra started getting some time. And then Josh Reynolds got picked up and was looking good. And once you got those guys that Goff was comfortable with, the team changed. It looked completely different. And that last few games, that first year, they actually looked solid. The second year, they started off a little rough defensively, but by the midway point, you could start to see glimpses of a defense coming around. And if you were watching the games closely, you could see like certain guys were like, yeah, they're doing what they need to do. There were a couple guys, they weren't necessarily carrying their weight. They really struggled with their secondary. That's why they fired Aubrey Pleasant last year. They weren't lining up in the right spots. And you could tell that Aaron Glenn wanted nickel corners who could stop the run because that's the type of guy he wants. He wants dogs in that secondary. He wants guys who are going to sniff it out, whether it's screen plays, and get up there and break it up. He didn't want a third linebacker. He wanted a nickel corner who could come up and play like a linebacker, but had the speed of a corner. And you can see it. Our run defense is good this year. I think we're going to make some noise this year in the playoffs. I can't imagine what this team's going to look like next year. I don't really want to think about it, but I'm even more excited about what this configuration is going to look like next year than I am for this year. And I already think we're a really good team. It's just a weird feeling to trust everything that the front office is doing, the coaching staff, and the players. Like this year, you've seen pure penalties that have dropped us back to 3rd and 15 or 3rd and 20 or whatever. And somehow Detroit finds a way to overcome these things. Or, we're driving down on Kansas City and we turn the ball over inside the 10 when Marvin Jones fumbled. These things in years past would have been the difference of the game. There were points where referees and officials were going against us, it felt like, in the Chiefs game, for example. And again, we overcame those things. So all these things you see and you're like, oh man, normally the Lions wouldn't overcome that. And we have, I think, was it the Packers or the Panthers? I can't remember. We started the game with a pick six or something. And, Goff comes back, no problem, touchdown. And then we never look back. This team's different. I've been saying it's been different. I remember going to the Rams Super Bowl game, or to the Super Bowl party when the Rams were in it a couple years ago, trying to explain to everybody in the room that the Lions in year 3, which is this year, we're going to start to look really good. And I said, year 4, that's the year. I said, that is the year I think we could actually make a Super Bowl run. They're a year ahead of what I expected, but I've been trying to tell people they're different. I like Goff. I love Goff. I liked Goff before. I thought Goff was going to be solid. I thought he could do it, especially since we had an offensive line. We had resources into positional players around him. Like running back, I thought he just needed a couple more, like another receiver and a tight end. Needed a defense. But Goff has proven he can lead this team. He can lead a team to be great. I don't see a lot of holes in his game other than occasionally, his legs aren't what you would love in today's NFL. But he is smart. He makes the right plays. When he feels or sees pressure, he knows where his guys are and, throws the ball in the dirt at their feet if they're not in a position to make a play because guys are around them. He's a smart heads-up player, and you see it. So, that's my ramble about the Lions, but I feel really good about it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you want to have more Lions talks, subscribe. You can follow me over on TikTok at Online Sports Talk. You can obviously follow me here on YouTube. We can talk about these things. Follow me on Instagram. We can chat there, or even our Facebook page. All those places, if you just send me a little comment or comment on the other stuff, or even a message, I will get back to you. So with that, guys, thank you for watching this. One Pride, and go Lions.